enters inside the cracks of the rock due to frosting and thawing action of the water also. The rock will be broken down into smaller pieces. Basically, the rock will be broken down into smaller pieces due to several reasons, due to several physical reasons or due to chemical reasons. Basically, due to the temperature, difference in temperature, due to collision. Basically, they are formed when they are subjected. The soil is formed when the rock is subjected to different climatic condition, different condition of the environment. As we all are very, very familiar, there is a temperature difference. There is a difference in temperature in our surrounding areas. Sometimes it is very, very hot and sometimes it is very, very cold. Basically, during during the daytime, the temperature will be very high and the temperature will be lower comparison to daytime. This process causes heating and cooling of the minerals that are present within the rock particles. The minerals that are present within the parent rock will be heated or cooled due to the difference in temperature during the daytime or during nighttime. Because of this, the smaller cracks begins to develop in the bigger boulder of the rocks. And when this process continues for a longer period of time, finally the rocks will be broken down into smaller pieces. And after 50 to 100 years of time, the complete rocks that are present, the big boulders of rocks will be converted into similar smaller pieces of the rocks, 2 or 4 fragments of the rocks. Finally, they will be converted into the pebbles. The sand granules will be formed, and from the sand granules, the soil particles will be seen in the surrounding area. This all occurs due to the difference in temperature during the daytime or during nighttime. Besides these, during this crack formation process, due to the difference in temperature, any reason the rock do not break down into smaller pieces, or some fragments of the rocks break into smaller pieces, and some places the crack occurs in the rock, the rainwater or the water that is flowing from the river itself passes inside the pores of the rocks. Those water will remain inside the pores of the rocks for a certain period of time, and during this period of time, when the temperature changes, especially in the winter season, when temperature changes, the water freezes or the water thaws. That means during the very low temperature, the liquid water will be converted into ice particles. And when the temperature rises, the ice will be converted into liquid. This is called and thawing action of the water. And this freezing and thawing action of the water inside the pores of the rock, inside the cracks of the rock, thus breaking down of the rocks into smaller pieces, and finally in the long term helps in formation of swell. This is the winds. Winds are also one of the reasons. Because of this, the rocks will be broken down into smaller pieces. The height will not be inches of the rock, but the smaller pieces of the rocks will be easily carried out or easily can be rolled from one place to another place by the high speed of the wind. So when the rock particles are being eroded, when the rock particles are being blown away by the high speed of the water or high speed of the wind, they will collide with one another before they get deposited in one particular place. And during this collision also, the rock particles will be broken down into smaller pieces, finally giving rise to the particles of the swell. Besides this, in the fractures of the rock, in the cracks of the rock that has been developed due to several processes, due to the difference in temperature, due to freezing and thawing action of the water, through the collision of the rock, if in these crack particles, in these crack parts of the rock, if in any case the plants begin to grow. And develop. These plants will slowly penetrate inside the rock, making the rock very, very weaker in nature. As a result, in a long run, the rocks will be broken down into smaller pieces, and finally they will give rise to the swell particles. So basically, there are several physical processes or physical reasons, physical things because of which the swell will be broken into small pieces. mainly temperature, difference in temperature during day and night time due to the freezing and thawing action of the water. If the water enter inside the pores of the rock, similarly, due to the roots entering of the roots of the plants inside down into smaller pieces and converted into the well particles. Clear? Ma'am. Here as that also differs in their sizes. Depending upon the amount of these substances present in the soil, we can easily find out whether the soil is fertile soil or soil is not a fertile soil. Some of the soil may consist of larger amounts of sand particles, some may consist of larger amounts of silt in it. Similarly, some may consist of huge amount of organic matter, or organic matter in substances. So, depending upon all the substances that is present in the soil will be good for the agriculture or soil will not be good for the agriculture. So, basically, we can say as the soil is made up of broken rock particles, obviously the soil comprises of small particles of the rocks and minerals inside it. Besides this, the soil also comprises of certain amount of organic matter. Only the smaller pieces of the rocks cannot make the soil fertile. So basically, for the soil to become fertile, the dead and decayed bodies of the animals, that is, the humus, should be mixed with the soil. So basically, we can say the soil comprises of different things, different compositions are present in the soil, different layers are present in the soil, which is regarded as the structure of the soil. Generally, there is different layers of the soil, the top layer, middle layer, and the bottom layer. The top layer of the soil basically comprises of, the top layer of the soil basically comprises of the organic matter, organic substances. Below the top layer of the soil, we cannot find huge amount of organic substances because larger amount of the plants and animals can be found at the surface of the soil. So when these animals die, and decay, or when the parts of the plants die and decay, will be mixed into the soil. So most of the organic manures, organic substances are found at the topmost layer of the soil. Besides these, the middle layer of the soil also comprises of certain amount of organic matter because up to this layer, certain organic manures can reach, or the humus can reach, or we can say some of the insects, some of the animals, or the roots of the plant can reach up to the middle layer of the soil. So this middle layer of the soil may comprise of organic manures, that is humus, similarly insects, as it provides habitat to larger number of the insects, larger number of the soil organisms. It also comprises of roots of the plants, and as well as roots of the plants and other several substances are present in the middle layer of the soil. Inside this, at the bottom layer of the soil, we can find the rocky material. Samikaran Singh. Layer of the soil basically comprises of the soil mainly comprises of the rocky matter, or used granules of the rock, used boulders of the rocks can be found at the lower layer of the soil. So basically we can say the soil comprises of several parts. Several are present in the soil. Soil is the aggregation of larger number of the substances. It comprises of the sand particle, it comprises of the silt particles, similarly it comprises of clay to the other particles. Half of the bottom with the water and for the soil that we have collected from our surrounding garden area. After we have poured the swell inside the water that is present inside the glass, stir it properly. Stir भनेको चलाइदिने, बोतललाई स्टेक गर्ने अथवा कुनै पनि काठले चम्चाले चलाइदिने. So after this, let the bottle settle down for some period of time. At least for 5 to 10 minutes. Let the bottle settle down without disturbing it. Do not shake it, do not steep it, or do not touch the bottle. Let it settle down for some period of time. After some period of time, we can see these layers in the soil. At the very, very lowermost layer of the bottle, we can see the pebbles, heavy rock particles. We can see at the very lowermost layer, bottom layer of the bottle. Beside these, above the bottom layer of the bottle, above the rock that is present at the bottle, we can find the fine clay particles, which is much more heavier in comparison to other substances. Above the clay particles are the mud. We can find the sand particles. Similarly, above the sand particles, we can find the water layer, and on the water layer, we can find some of the suspended materials that is floating on the water. So this experiment will give us a clear view of structure of the earth, that is, what type of substances are present in the soil, what is soil made up of, and what is the basic structure of the soil, what is present at the very topmost level and lower soil. So basically, the heavier materials from this experiment, we can prove that the heavier materials are the rock particles which is present at the bottom of the soil. Similarly, the less heavier material, that is clay or the mud or the thick particles, coarse particles, are present above the rock particles. Above that, we can find the sand layers if it is present in the soil, and above that, the water, which is basically lighter in comparison to other materials, can be seen at the bottle. And above the water layer also, the very, very lighter materials are suspended, which we recognize as the humus layer or the biological substances that is present in our soil. Clear? Yes, Manjila?
Ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, if in exam we will ask that write the components of soil, then we can write the process of formation of soil.
Components of soil and process of formation of soil are different. Components of soil means what does soil consist? You can write the soil comprises of clay, soil comprises of sand particles, yes, and soil comprises of the silts, soil comprises of the biological substances. These are basically the components of the soil. What soil comprises of? Soil ma ke present huncha ta, that is known as the components of the soil. And components of the soil and process of formation of the soil are completely different. Okay? Clear, Manjila?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So before I start soil profile, I'm going to send the link.
Okay.
And after you feel Sarojana, bottom experiment, we found the layer. Yes or no? At the topmost layer, there is the very lighter material, and that is the basic soil profile. So soil profile is the vertical section of the soil from the surface of the ground. When we dig the ground vertically downward, we can find out the vertical section of the soil, which is regarded as the soil profile. Clear? So soil profile basically is the vertical section of the soil from the surface of the ground, where from the surface of the ground downwards up to certain level till we find the underlying rock materials. The soil profile basically comprises of larger amount of the substances. As we just studied, soil profile can be divided into several parts. It can be divided into the top layer, similarly the middle layer, as well as the bottom layer. Each of the layer is given several names. Each of the layers that is present in the soil profile is given several names, that is topsoil, subsoil, and parent rock. We all have known that, yes? Topsoil, and parent rock. These are the profile of the soil. So the vertical layer, when we dig the ground up, first we find the top, and below the topsoil there is presence of the subsoil. Below the subsoil there is presence of the parent rock material. So these are, there are the face of the earth. When we dig vertically, we can divide it into three main parts, that is topsoil, subsoil, as well as the parent rock. At the basically comprises of larger amount of the substances. It basically comprises of the organic matter. Similarly, it also comprises of various substances that is equally important for the soil to become fertile. It comprises of the dead and decayed parts of the leaves, grasses, similarly the smaller fragments of the rock, twigs of the twigs and branches, the surface organisms, fallen trees, dead and decomposing organic matter. These all are present at the topmost layer of the soil. Besides this, it also consists of the humus layer. The topmost layer or the topsoil is also divided into two horizons. That is, I guess, not needed in your label. It is divided into O horizon and A horizon. O horizon simply means there is presence of the fresh grasses, fresh leaves, as well as the smaller particles of the rocks. Each of these substances are fresher in nature. And below the O horizon, there is another layer of the topsoil, which is regarded as A horizon. And this A horizon comprises of the humus particles, that is dead and decayed materials, which is already converted into the green manures, which is already converted into the organic manures, is present in this particular layer. So we can say the topsoil is a layer which is very, very rich in the organic material. It comprises organic matter, it comprises composed materials, and this layer is porous as well. That means it comprises of the pores inside it. These pores are very useful, very useful to hold enough amounts of water inside it. If the pores are not present, if the enough amount of pores are not present in the particular soil, it cannot hold enough amount of air and water, which is extremely important for the soil to become fertile. Below this layer, we can find another layer that is regarded as the subsoil. The subsoil basically comprises of, or subsoil is generally present below the topsoil and above the bedrock or above the parent rock. It is much more harder in comparison to the topsoil. In comparison to topsoil, because of the pressure from the above, because of pressure from the upper layer of the ground, it is much more compact, as well as it is much more harder in comparison to the topsoil. We cannot find a loose soil at the subsoil layer. In this layer, we can find some amounts of organic matter, some amount of soluble minerals are also present in this layer, and very less amount of humus can be present in this particular layer. This is very lighter brown in color. This layer is lighter brown in color because of presence of the minerals, because of presence of the iron oxide and several other metals present in this particular layer. And below this layer, we can find another layer that is regarded as the parent rock layer. This is compacted layer, or this, yeah, we can say this is the cemented layer that is present in the earth's surface. Here we can find larger amount of the rocks. The parent rocks are present in this layer. The big boulders of the rocks, which is regarded as the parent rock, is present in this particular layer. Different types of rocks such as granite, basalt, limestone, and many more rocks that we have studied till now. All of these rocks can be found in this particular layer. So this layer is a parent rock layer, but is also regarded as the horizon that is present in the profile. So basically, the soil profile of the earth surface comprises of three different layers: topsoil, subsoil, and the parent rock. Topsoil is the fertile layer where the plants can grow properly, because it is very rich in amount of matter can be present in this particular be found, more of it can be found in this particular layer. And below that layer, we can find the layer of the compacted rock, layer of the cemented rock, which is regarded as the parent rock layer, or is also known as our horizon. Yeah? So when we look at the, if you look at the internet, you can find and easily find which is basically okay, which gives us the idea of how the soil profile looks like. This is the basic soil present in the soil. When we हामीले तलमा खन्दै गयौँ भने this is the basic layer, basic plants. We can find the fresh plants, the twigs of the plants. Below that layer, we can find the organic material. Below that layer, then basic rises, least nutrients that come from the horizon. Horizon, but means horizon. Beside कुनै कुनै प्लान्ट्सको रुट्सहरू चाहिँ यहाँसम्म पुग्न सक्छ न्युट्रिसन. Similarly, there is presence of rises of broken bedrocks, जुन चाहिँ ठुलो boulders, rocks को boulders layer comprised of this all rock. Similarly, the last horizon is the R horizon. This R horizon comprises of the parent rock, the big balls of the parent rocks, the latest or the last horizon of the